Good. Hi. So many of you guys have worked at a job that pays minimum wage, or you guys are currently working at a job that pays minimum wage. So I'm sure a lot of you guys know the feeling of being underpaid or feeling like it's hard to get by the amount of money you're making. But imagine working a minimum wage job and having to provide for your family or pay rent or paying for medical bills or car bills. So today I'm going to be talking about why minimum wage should be increased. So I'm going to talk about the arguments against minimum wage, the economic benefits increasing minimum wage will have, and also the social benefits involved with increasing minimum wage. Okay. So people argue that increasing minimum wage will cause inflation, and the reason for this is that when you pay people more money, you have to print more dollars, and if you print more dollars, the value of the dollar will decrease, which will eventually lead to inflation. Although this seems logical, there's a study done by Nguyen Viet Quang, and her study was conducted from 1994 to about 2008 in Vietnam. And in her study, she researched the increase of minimum wage throughout that period in Vietnam, and she actually discovered that there's no direct correlation with the inflation that occurred in Vietnam and the minimum wage increase. The second reason people think that minimum wage shouldn't be increased is that increasing minimum wage will decrease the number of jobs available in the economy. And the reason for this is that when employers are forced to pay their employees more money, they won't have extra money to hire more workers, and because of this, unemployment rate will go up. And this too is proven wrong by a study conducted by David Card and Alan Kruger. And in this study, they researched 410 fast food restaurants in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania in the year of 1992. And during this time, New Jersey, they increased their minimum wage from $4.25 to $5.05 an hour. And in their study, they looked up New Jersey, where they increased minimum wage, and in Pennsylvania, where minimum wage actually stayed the same. And at the end of their study, they discovered that despite the increase in minimum wage, there was actually no change in employment in either cities. Okay, so we talked about how minimum wage won't be detrimental to the economy, and now I want to talk to you guys how increasing minimum wage will actually benefit the economy. The first reason why it will benefit the economy is that increasing minimum wage will help stimulate the economy. And the reason for this is that when you pay workers more, they have more money to spend. So by spending more money, they'll stimulate the economy by giving more money to businesses, which will create more jobs. And in doing so, or in having more money spent, they'll be able to pay off things such as debts, car loans, mortgages, and just other things like that will help benefit our economy. Another reason why increasing minimum wage benefits our economy is that it decreases the turnover rate. And the turnover rate is the rate at which a business gets rid of or loses an employee and hires a new one. And when you decrease the turnover rate, the business actually becomes more efficient, because when a worker stays at a job longer than they become more familiar with the job, they become better at the things that they have to do at the job. And when you have a worker that stays there longer, the business doesn't have to spend money on things like hiring new workers or training new workers. And finally, increasing minimum wage has social benefits. Here in America, we recently went through an economic hardship because of the recession, and more people now are dependent on minimum wage jobs to either provide for their family or just to merely get by. But the current minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, doesn't. It makes it nearly impossible, if not very difficult, to get by on minimum wage. And there's actually a study done by Lawrence Mitchell, and he looked up the salary of the top CEOs in America, and he compared it to the average American salary. And in his study, he discovered that the CEOs in America actually make 231 times more than the average American. I think when you look at this comparison, it just doesn't make sense that people that are barely getting by are making so little, while the top CEOs are making so much money. And to me, it just seems kind of unfair that the top CEOs aren't willing to give up a chunk of their salary so they could help people that are more in need. So when you increase minimum wage, you not only provide financial security for the people that are working minimum wage jobs, but you also help them to secure a better future. So the benefits of increasing minimum wage will continue to be a controversial topic because the economy in America is something that's often debated about. But from the points I talked about, the facts actually show that increasing minimum wage will not be detrimental to our economy, but will actually have a positive impact. The minimum wage should be increased because it will not only stimulate our economy and provide jobs, but it actually helps those who are in need, and so I'm not sure if any of you guys ever thought about this topic before, but I hope that from the things that I talked about that I was either able to persuade you guys or kind of open your guys' eyes to a different perspective on this topic. Thank you.
So, Robert, what did you think?
I thought it was good. I thought you had a good intro. You pretty much told us where you were going, and I thought that there was good evidence. Like you look at the other side of the, like the opposing view, and then you sort of give evidence against their arguments, which was good. I think you could have better transitions. Like you sort of jump from point to point, and your eye contact was there. I think it could have been a little bit better. Like you're looking at the notepads a little bit, but overall it was good. And you had a good, I think, conclusion. You basically reviewed what you said and told us why it would be efficient, and I think it was good. Yeah.
All right. All right, the opening's okay. You've got an interesting visualization. You clearly state what your point of view is, and I thought you had a good preview. I think that you hurt yourself a little bit because the first point that you are dealing with is defensive stuff. In other words, you're kind of responding to the arguments against increasing the minimum wage instead of giving us the reason why we ought to increase the minimum wage. And so starting off on defense just feels awkward. You should, I think, be a little bit more offensive-minded in this. Build your argument first. So the argument about there being an economic boost and about reducing the transitional nature of the employment field, those ought to be your first points. Also, you didn't really have any evidence for those points, and so it seems strange after having presented evidence on the things that you said are problems, or the arguments against the minimum wage. You then come up and make arguments in favor of the minimum wage, and you don't have any proof for those. You just kind of have your own explanations on that, and I felt that felt a little bit hollow. So reverse the order of those things.